My name's Domingos Coxey, and I am the founder of the Sunday Film Club. And today we've got a special panel with some very special, talented guests of mine. Thank you for coming to our panel. The Sunday Film Club presents the new age of filmmakers, musicians, and creators panel. I'm going to pass some mic for everyone to introduce themselves. A very talented bunch. Go on, Anna.
Hi, my name's Anna Nokomis. I'm a singer and songwriter, and I also write for film and TV.
Hi, I'm Anna Mayers, another Anna, and I'm a writer, film reviewer, and podcaster.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm an animator, visual effects artist.
Hi, I'm Rosie Webb. I'm a singer-songwriter, musician, music teacher, and freelance creative.
I'm Harry Baker. I'm a film editor and sometime director.
And I'm Daniel Colbert, and I'm a YouTube strategist, and I help people to use videos on YouTube to grow their businesses.
All right, thank you. So basically, I'm just going to jump straight into it. Obviously, the panel we're dealing with is about the social media era and so forth. My first question is to everybody down the panel. What have you learned so far in your chosen creative field that you would advise anybody aspiring to be a filmmaker, creator, or musician in this digital and social media era? I will start with Anna Nokomis next to me, and then lead our way down. You got?
I can answer first if you like.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Rosie's got one. Go ahead.
So my creative chosen field is music, and so I'm a musician, singer, songwriter. And I think one of the big things that I've learned through being in this industry for the last 12 years is probably that experience is everything, and you should take any kind of like performance opportunities and kind of like networking opportunities, as many as you can. That's like been one of my big learning points, because like I get quite anxious a lot, and I don't really tend to go out of my comfort zone, but I find that the best way to learn and to grow is to always go out of your comfort zone and push yourself. So that's mine.
You next?
Oh, I was just going to say, being a creative and an artist, I'm sure we can all agree in this kind of social media era, it's great free advertising and putting yourself out there, and you can be so personal, you can connect with fans and people and connections. We were sat at the front saying, what's your Instagram to everyone? And I think, don't kind of knock it. You can really use what is available to you, and I definitely do, and I've met great people through it, connected with people, and I'm able to share what I do for free with the whole world, and I think it's fantastic.
I would add also using, as you were saying, like social media like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. TikTok has much better algorithms, so you get a much bigger audience, and also a lot of learning tools. For example, Epic Games does a lot of training for the Unreal Engine 5, which is actually incredible software, and it's free as well, so anyone can download it and use the software, basically.
Harry? Daniel?
You know, I love that you missed out YouTube in that as well. I mean, YouTube's one of the biggest platforms anyway to be able to, really, really put your name out there. And I would say, going on the question, for people who are thinking about, for people who are actually thinking about using YouTube, consider actually niching yourself. So if you are maybe a filmmaker, what in particular, or what genre would you want to be known for on the platform? I've had clients who they will try and niche themselves in like 3 or 4 different areas, but they don't really get known for something. Whereas for someone who maybe just specializes in something like horror, then people can kind of get used to the idea that that channel would be the go-to channel for maybe the horror genre, or maybe something very particular in horror. So definitely for me, YouTube is going to be a great platform really to work out who your niche is and then create content that actually focuses on targeting that niche.
I've got something to add. Also, the slight issue with YouTube is that certain software is like you could be like learning something, and then suddenly that bit that you're going you need to click or press, it's not there. And it's like Maya is the worst culprit because there's so many different versions of Autodesk Maya, which usually do like 3D animation, rigging, modeling. It's kind of, you'll be doing it and then you're like, oh, that's Maya 2015, not 2018. It's just like, oh, man, it's annoying. But that's the thing where you have to, when you do search for things, type in the specific kind of the version of the program that you're using, like Blender or Maya, or all these different softwares, the version, and then you get the specific one that you want, basically.
Cool. What about Harry? What's your inputs?
Yeah, I mean, I can only really approach the question as a filmmaker. That's my background. I think the advice I'd give someone who's kind of aspiring to work in that field is that you need to make stuff. Kind of echoing what a lot of folk have said, but I think it's something that in film particularly it's often difficult. We have a conception that you need a crew, you need a large group of people, you need locations, camera equipment, lighting, etc., etc., etc. And I think a lot of people who aspire to work in the industry never overcome that first obstacle. So I think the really important thing, is to focus on, not aspiring to kind of, great things right off the bat, being okay with starting small and working from there.
I completely agree. And also not waiting for things to be perfect. I think that's always a massive hindrance for people. They wait for something to be perfect before they put themselves out there, and just get yourself out there, join the community, and just go for it.
Oh, cool. Thanks for the answers. They're really in depth. The second question is, what advantages and disadvantages do you believe that living in this modern digital era of entertainment 2022 and beyond, what does it have?
Can I start?
Anybody can answer first.
Yeah. So for me, I think. Is this on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear
Sorry.
it? 1, 2, 3.
Sorry.
You can hear me, right? No, you can't hear me.
Dale, could you
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
check
Thank
that
you so
mic?
much. Oh, right.
There you go.
Absolutely. Anyway, if you missed it earlier, I'm Rosie. Hi. No, so basically, advantage and disadvantage in the music industry, for me, what I've learned. An advantage with what I do is that I've met and worked with people all over the world through, social media and through the internet, and being able to find new artists that I wouldn't normally listen to or that I wouldn't normally, find. I mean, I've got a lot of favorite artists from Australia, for example. I've got a lot of favorite artists from Malta, and I wouldn't have found that kind of music or those artists if it weren't for, social media and the digital age. But a disadvantage, in my opinion, is that everything is I feel like things can get too saturated. So, I mean, things like TikTok are a big problem in this day and age when it comes to oversaturation in the music industry, I feel. An example of that is there's this artist called Steve Lacy, and he's been popping off at the moment, and he's got one song that's really, really famous on TikTok called Bad Habit. And there was a video going around which was quite viral recently of him performing, and then he sung the first verse of the song, the chorus, and everybody knew it, and then he passed the mic to the audience and no one could sing back. And I think that it was a shame because he's obviously a really talented artist and really incredible, but because of the way that social media works nowadays, it's like those 6-second videos, 30-second videos, no one really takes notice of anything more than that. We all need something new all the time. So I think the disadvantage would be that things can get really oversaturated in this industry. But the advantage is that you can use and meet and talk and listen to things from all over the world. So that's my opinion.
Also, I want to add...
Try different.
1, 2, oh.
Hello.
Was I using the wrong mic the whole time?
So basically, it's a bit like when you say about the whole media thing. It's kind of good in a way because you can basically work people all around the world, as you were saying. I was working, so I did this music video, Easy Max Monkey Bars, which now got 2.1 million views on YouTube. And I was working with people from the Philippines, Canada, and the UK. So we're all working together, and we're doing a lot of like Zoom calls and one issue was all the time zone. So I was talking to my friend like 2 a.m. in the morning. But so we managed to get everything done, and we working, and then we got 2.1 million views. So yeah.
That's cool. I agree with Rosie about the saturation. I think a disadvantage is that everyone can be an artist, but an advantage is everyone can be an artist. Yeah. There are so many people wanting to share their stuff, and it can be really hard to find a way to stand out. And again, what you were saying with perfectionism and making sure that you're really happy with what you want to say before you put it online. But anyone can put anything online, and it's a great way, like I was saying before, that you can have Instagram and use it to your advantage, meet people from around the world. There's a lot of people out there, but that doesn't mean that you can't be one of them. And I think, what's an advantage can also be a disadvantage, but you should use it to your advantage.
Anyone want to add? Again, Daniel.
No, I completely agree with that as well. I mean, even for me, with what I do with my clients, I mean, I love the fact that everyone now can just be an entrepreneur, thanks to just what social media offers these days. And the fact that you can have an international audience. You know, you could be reaching people out in Australia, America, and wherever, and doing that in the comfort of your London home. And I love that, and even the money that people can make through either advertisements, sponsors, their own products, courses, or hell, depending on what your background is. Especially for me, where I'll work with a lot of self-development coaches, for them, their upsell is, their own coaching programs. So they then don't need to do that much marketing by using videos, and they can be making quite easily between like 5, 10K a month, which then I'll be sitting there going like, I think I'm clearly in the wrong job here. If they're able to either sit there doing something as simple as playing on a computer game, or in particularly with some of my clients where they will be just sitting and giving advice to camera, or having testimonials of clients that they're working with. In regards to a disadvantage, I would say, I think for me, for what I've seen and heard, especially throughout my clients who are hypnotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists and stuff, is more just the mental health side of what social media is actually offering people, where people are getting a little bit too caught up in the trends, or they'll go absolutely crazy for trying to get the views, or or likes or dislikes. They'll get heartbroken if they don't quite get what they were setting out to achieve for a video. And I do actually have a concern, I think, really with where videos are getting shorter and shorter these days, especially with platforms like TikTok, where I think I once saw a video where someone literally sat there the entire video, and that had like 1 million views on it. And I know there would be some people that would argue that would be counted as content, but I would completely disagree. Sitting there doing absolutely nothing or miming a song is not content, in my opinion. But if you are catching a trend, you are essentially putting yourself also ahead of the curve. But again, just the mental health side of it, I have heard that there has been a huge rise in issues like ADHD and depression and stuff, just because our brains are getting trained to take in information shorter and shorter. So I think that's probably my only concern with where things are going, that people might get a little bit too lost in trying to make content, trying to attract in a huge audience, and if they don't reach it, then it can affect them mentally, or in whatever form that might be. So yeah.
I'd say an advantage is learning. I mean, the things that you can learn online. You can teach yourself piano from the comfort of your own home, to sound engineering, to anything. And it's available to people in less advantaged countries. They've got it at their fingertips now, and it's amazing. But I would say a huge disadvantage is obviously the kind of isolation aspect and, cyberbullying. So yeah, it kind of goes, there's positives and negatives to it.
Yeah, I don't have anything terribly groundbreaking to add to that. I think in film specifically, you know, the amazing thing is that all of us walk around with technology in our pockets, which would have been utterly inaccessible, you know, even 20 years ago. You know, if you think of, you know, some of the filmmakers of the French New Wave, you know, in the 50s and 60s, and the kind of, you know, hoops they were jumping through to make a movie and how difficult that was. If you told them, you know, 50 years in the future, you're just going to have a thing in your pocket, does all of this, you know, what would they have gone out and done with that technology? And I think it's important to remember, you know, what a privilege it is to have that accessible. I think, you know, I very much echo what a lot of people have said. The disadvantage is that it's harder than ever to get your work seen, even if it's easier to make it. And I think what you were saying about sort of finding a niche, finding an audience, you know, there are more people viewing stuff probably than ever before. You know, the audiences is out there, but it's how you tap into it and how you find the certain bit of it that is the struggle now.
I just want to add, also use LinkedIn. The advantage, disadvantage of using that is that you see amazing work, and also you can connect to people from like Pixar, DreamWorks, you know, these top companies. And then, but the disadvantage of seeing some amazing work, it kind of puts you off. And then you look at your work and you look at their work. You're like, well, I mean, I haven't worked on How to Train Your Dragon, but that looks amazing. And then you look at your work, you're like, yeah, I don't know. And then one of the issues is with when you know, apply for these jobs, they're looking at 100 a day basically. So you know, it takes a long time, and it can be quite stressful. But yeah, just have to keep working on it basically.
Yeah, that's some really good points made by everybody on the panel. I'll add my 2 pence on that. I would say is that you've got to look at yourself in the digital media era as it's your chance to be your most genuine self. In the fact that, you know, there's never been a time frame where literally anybody is literally like a preemptive filmmaker, creator, musician, because you've got these things in your pockets. We're all individuals, and you just got to look at yourself as there's billions of human beings on this planet. We've been here for how many billions of years, and there's never, ever been anybody like you. You are all special in your own way. There's no one in this planet that is like you. So once you understand that, and you really channel that into whatever you're doing, you know, that will really help you on the path, whatever creative pathway you want to go. So I would agree with what one of the guys said here, really. To segue to my next question, would be the opinion of new age media versus old school mainstream media, and can they coexist and continue that way? Like the battle between old school and new school.
I think the old school media isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I think things tend to stick around. Things that work tend to stick around. You know, you know, if you were to get in a time machine and you were to go back 2,500 years to ancient Greece and watch a play, you know, the context would be different, the language would be different, there would be all sorts of stuff that was alien to us, but it would be recognizably the same art form that you can go and see in the West End today, right? You know, that's something that works and has worked for thousands of years, and changes in form, changes in technology, you know, don't fundamentally alter what it is. Now, obviously, you know, film is a much newer art form, and we're not on any kind of the same time scale. But, you know, I suspect that the idea of a narrative film isn't going anywhere. I think what is changing is the slice of the market it takes up. That there's now a huge amount of alternatives. I think, you know, the biggest alternative is probably gaming. Probably most people actually experience narrative storytelling through the medium of some kind of computer game. I think that's probably, you know, a massive slice of it. You know, a lot of the stuff that supposedly heralds the death of filmmaking, I'm not sure it means films aren't going to be made. It just means it's another thing alongside film. And so the question is less, you know, does the old media die? It's more how does it adapt? You know, how does it fit into its new kind of niche, into its new ecosystem? You know, and you can see, I think, quite clearly, you know, quite a big change in sort of the kind of films that get cinema releases, that are big box office hits, you know, that are big audience draws, that we've sort of very much moved into a world where it's sort of, you know, almost exclusively kind of, you know, big visual spectacles that fill that niche, and a lot of, you know, sort of slower, quieter, lower budget stuff seems to have moved into the kind of, you know, TV streaming side of things. You know, I think it's all still very much in flux, you know, and with the rate technology is developing, it may continue to be forever, you know, it may not ever settle down to a kind of new normal. It's arguable if it ever did, but that to me is kind of the interesting thing. It's not really a kind of new versus old, it's more a kind of new and new and new and new kind of alongside everything else. And also that a lot of the media that shares sort of similar forms, you know, there's some amazing filmmaking on TikTok. You know, I've seen some stunningly edited and directed TikToks. That doesn't necessarily mean that the creator of those TikToks is brilliantly placed to go and make a 2-hour feature film. Those are actually very different, you know, very different areas, very different talents, very different skill sets, and it's not necessarily, we tend to think of it all as like coming under one umbrella, and I think that's sometimes not necessarily very helpful.
No, I think I completely agree with that point, actually. And I also feel like it should never be a competition between old school versus new school, because at the end of the day, a lot of things get recycled. You know, I mean, for me personally, as a musician, you know, things like tapes are coming back in fashion. Things like vinyls have been in fashion for a very, very long time now. You know, a lot of the kind of big, you know, record players are really back in fashion now, and I know it's to do a lot with aesthetic, you know, in terms of like recycling something that, you know, was a bit old and like now making it kind of new. But I feel like the new age media has a lot to thank the old age media for, because without things like records and tapes and, you know, vinyl players and little MP3s, you know, I don't think we would be anywhere near as to where we are today. And so, yeah, I feel like, I mean, I remember back when Vine was a thing, you know, and Vine was like the first kind of 6-second video thing where you could just scroll and scroll and scroll, and then there'd just be constant videos. And TikTok's just the same. Who knows how long TikTok will be around for? Who's to say whether it will, you know, go out of fashion like Vine did? But I feel like it should never be like a competition. It's just about using it to your advantage. Like how you said about, you know, people on TikTok might make a really good song or a really good film, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are like an expert in that, you know, profession, or like they're necessarily like professional at it. I don't know whether that's just like a bitter point of view, because I've been in this industry for years and years, and I've still not got anywhere where I want to be, but, you know, I don't know. I feel like we need to grow alongside each other, not make it a competition, really.
Also, the new age media basically... hello? Oh, it was.
Okay,
strange.
right, Mike.
So basically for the visual effects, the old age media would be kind of like the matte painting. So in Star Wars, the New Hope, they had paint glass, and they literally put little dots where the stormtroopers are, and then they kind of cut a little bit out, and then they had that as the live action shot, and then they just shot it through that glass. But if you look very carefully, those heads don't move at all. And then the new age would be kind of like all the visual effects you get in like the Avengers and all those massive explosions. And then a lot of directors have actually kind of gone kind of old school a little bit, where they do like more practical, like J.J. Abrams with his like alien. So instead of doing CG aliens, they would actually be wearing all the makeup and everything, which takes like 6-7 hours to put on. But yeah, so like also, you know, using green screens and blue screens. Now we don't really need that. We've just got the virtual production screen that ILM Stagecraft is doing. So at the moment they're filming in Vancouver in Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief, for the Disney Plus series. And so they're using this massive screen with each little panel is run by like a separate graphics card, and it's very powerful. And using the Unreal Engine, and you can create like environments. So instead of going back to the studio and go, oh, we need that move there, and then then they have to read the then they have to redo it, and then they have to re-render it, and it just takes so long. If you got the whole virtual production screen there and then, you can just do it just straight away. It's like, oh yeah, can you just move that rock to the left? So yeah, I'll spin left, and that's it. It's just instant. But for the old one, it just takes much, much longer.
I think they really do need each other, and I think the people who are well known in each of the sides nowadays really do rely on the other one. The two examples I can think of is Joe Sugg and Saffron Barker, who are big YouTubers, big online presences, going on to Strictly Come Dancing into kind of the old world on TV, getting to be known by people who don't watch these YouTubers. Suddenly they're known kind of, at least in the UK, by a wider audience. And then, again, my other reason is Jeremy Vine. I don't think I've ever watched his show, but I know the Jeremy Vine show. He is suddenly really big on TikTok, and he's doing loads of random trends and things, which obviously his audience on TV aren't typically kind of young people using TikTok on social media, but a way to advertise to that new age of people and think, oh, maybe I'll watch the news and see what he's doing on this kind of old style media. I think whether it's the idea of grass is greener on the other side, or some people are very like, I'm going to stay on YouTube and I'm big on YouTube, so everyone should know me. An example, I guess, is the Sidemen. I have never watched a Sidemen video, to my knowledge, but I know they have millions of followers. They've opened like a chicken company. They've opened like a hotel, I think. They've done so much stuff. But again, as someone who is on new age media, I still don't consume them. So in my life, they're not in it. So to use old style and new, you're able to reach a lot of people. And you still don't reach everyone, but I think you've really got to use everything you have available to you to be able to reach a wider population and to reach your target audiences.
It's quite a unique question, really. Because to me, I mean, old school media and new age media, it's kind of, media to me is more or less just evolved. And I think even you mentioned about with like Vine. I mean, that's I think Vine had eventually become TikTok, from what I gather. I would say, I mean, it's certainly evolved, but I think where the actual criticism can lie can be more in the element of how influencers can actually affect people. So like where, okay, we would watch the news for information, whereas now you can go on any kind of platform and anyone who has any kind of large audience can give an opinion, and they can quite easily influence those people watching them. So I think in regards to if they can coexist, I think it would really just come down to the fact of making sure that the information or whatever opinions are shared are clearly expressed in a way to make sure that if information is true, then it's stated that it's true. If it's stated that it's someone's opinion, then it needs to be stated that that is someone's opinion, rather than potentially influencing people in a way that could actually damage society. And I think I've kind of seen that with particular trends in the past, where, okay, I mean, not going into politics or anything, but certainly where people have voiced opinions about what side they lean towards and stuff, and then just because their viewers are watching it, suddenly they'll take that on board, and then that will be their critique without maybe not knowing what the real truths are about a circumstance. So I think it would need to, as long as that kind of implementation is there, just making sure that people know what is a true fact and what is someone's opinion on something, then that's where it can certainly coexist.
Yeah, well, it's basically like you're kind of saying it's blur the lines, right? because I feel like it's kind of bleeding into all facets of media, whether it's music or film or obviously the creators, writing, podcasting, visual effects. It's all sort of, I don't know, it's still ever evolving. I don't think because these days it seems like most creators are not just one thing anymore. Back in the day, Harry, specifically when you're on the set, before an actor will be an actor, a director will be a director, a grip will be a grip. Now they can do like 10, 15 different things almost. They're multifaceted. Do you think do you guys think to survive in this digital industry, as it's ever evolving, you have to be multifaceted? You don't really have a choice but to be multifaceted. Like, what's everyone's sort of opinions on that one?
Yeah, I think to survive in this day and age, you almost have to do more than one thing. I mean, like for me personally, I'm a musician, so I do the singing and songwriting, but I'm also a music teacher in primary schools for children, and I also co-manage a music venue in East London, and as well as alongside trying to do all my own gigs and make my own music and things like that. And I feel like in this day and age, like if you don't have more than one finger in a pie, for example, then, I think you'll be kind of stuck. And not to say that you should water yourself down, that you know every single skill and like every single talent, but I feel like to have more than one thing that you love and that you enjoy doing and that is creative is really important. Like, not even just to stay relevant, but like for your own mental health, really, so.
No, I agree. I feel I am my own agent and manager and assistant and chef and personal trainer, although she's not doing a good job nowadays. I feel that, again, we kind of put pressure on ourselves to have these perfect lives, and when we see people on Instagram living in amazing, clean white houses with nice kitchens and flowers and things, it's like, oh my God, why isn't my life like that? Like, I should be trying harder. But like you say, actually, they are their own cleaner. They have painted it themselves. They've obviously put the work in, and we've got to make sure that we break down this barrier of not believing that everyone's life is perfect. I think as well a good thing to think about is how when people have made it, I think Millie Bobby Brown is a good example. She's extremely young, but has suddenly thrown herself into a lot. I think she's exec produced the new Enola Holmes 2, as well as acting. She does some writing, I think directing. So even though her pies are slightly different to someone like my own, she's still putting herself out and doing a lot. So I think it's making sure, like you were saying, Rosie, is that you don't burn yourself out and make sure that you feel safe with it. But actually, right now, where I am in my career, I'm very happy putting my fingers in all those pies. One day it'd be great to have someone who actually forces me to go to the gym or do something. But right now, I'm happy with where I am, and I feel confident and able to achieve everything that I'd like to do. Yeah.
There is a beauty in it, though, and not spreading yourself too thin. As long as you're collaborating with a lot of people, if you, for example, music was your craft and being a pianist and that's what you focused on, as long as you're collaborating with lots of other musicians and spreading yourself that way, I think that's also just as powerful as, trying to do the social media and managing and all that kind of stuff as well. But I do agree is you're going to get further by trying other things and pushing yourself that way.
Well, I agree. Again, it's jack of all trades, master of none. Again, if you want to be able to say, I am a musician, you've got to put some of the pies aside and focus on that. So I totally agree.
So basically be like a Renaissance man or woman, basically, in modern age. I don't know, does anybody in the audience have any questions? Oh, the gentleman there. You want to come over? Come, use my mic. Yeah, you can. Here you go.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Ian Mitchell. I'm a town councillor in Amesbury, amongst other things. But I was particularly struck with how there seems to be a balance between fun and seriousness. And I'd welcome the panel's views on basically how serious do you have to be in order to get to the things you're actually wanting to communicate, to the self-actualization part. Because I am struck how the satellites that were put in orbit initially to carry telephone messages were saved economically because you could bounce TV signals off them. And so that's what they did with them. And so what saved Eutelsat 2F2 was probably Deep Space Nine. So some views on that, and the balance between doing your work for its own sake, which I would say is volunteer with a big V, and doing it for money, which is professional. And how does one balance it?
All right. Did everyone get that? What you said there about the professionalism and again, Joe, do you want to go or Rosie?
Yeah. So basically, it's kind of like the mind. But you got to like more focus for the like mindset, and try not to lot of distractions. You know, there's a lot of distractions. You know, going on Facebook, YouTube, and stuff. So like, you know, when you're doing this, like, you kind of like have to set yourself aside some time to do all the fun stuff, and that could be in the evening. But then during the whole day, you want to focus on like doing what you know paid to do or volunteer to do. But there's certain things where I find for like indie filmmaking, there's a lot of people will just do it for fun, and not really like, because there's a lot of people going up to me, oh yeah, I need an animator, I need an animator. Oh cool. So what's your budget? It's like, yeah, I don't have any money, and it's like, you know, we do need to live. We do need to kind of survive. And then there's times, I mean, it's harder because it's more those fish effect studios. They're the ones that will pay you the money. They'll pay you, you know, reasonably well, depending how, you know, if you're junior, mid, or senior. And you can negotiate when you're in recruitment and all that stuff. So, but it's kind of that thing where you just got to work on your trade or what you're, you know, trained to do, and then try and get good and also get feedback. I go to this event called Bring Your Own Animation, the London SIGGRAPH event, and there's loads of animators from Ravensbourne, Escape Studios, and University of Bournemouth, and all these different universities, London. Also professionals from NBC, DNEG, Framestore. And, you know, it's all about the feedback, you know, giving feedback. Then you can then work upon what your show, you know, what you want to put out, and then you can apply for the jobs, and then hopefully you get the job.
That was a really good question, actually, because that about you know, how far do you push yourself doing things for free until, you know, like you said, you've got bills to pay and you've got things to do. 1, 2, yeah. Oh my God. Anyway, you know, so there's definitely a thin line between like doing something for free and then trying to get paid for it. I mean, I spent like the first 5 years of my career just doing things voluntarily, you know, just doing things off the back of other people. But something that I've always struggled with in music is, when does it become a chore? You know, so for me, I've always studied music. I went to the Brit School, and then I went to Guildhall School of Music and Drama to study. And after a while, it became really hard for me to differentiate, right, am I doing this because I enjoy doing it? Or am I doing it because I'm being forced to do it? You know, or like I'm being asked to do research, or I'm being asked to do the coursework. You know, so... But for me, to be able to get past that is just being able to take a step back and actually taking yourself out of music for a while and taking yourself out of the creative industry for a bit. I mean, I really like going cycling and stuff, and that's nothing to do with music. And that's what kind of helps keep me balanced in like enjoying it and then not making it a chore. So yeah, that's me.
Anyone?
Yeah, I don't know if we want to talk about the professional versus personal side. I think what helps me is the part of my life where I am all over films and being a little nerd and all that sort of stuff. I'm very happy to tell people and say, oh, did you watch Doctor Who, or have you finished House of the Dragon, and I've just picked up this new comic, or have you seen this new game? I think it's choosing what part of my life I'm happy to share, and then what part of my life I'm not. So I think in the professional side, it's obviously presenting yourself well, but then also being happy to talk about the films you've seen, talk about what you're you've been engaging with and seeing online and want to be a part of, but then being able to switch off. And personally, I like cycling. I do some ballet. I don't do it to become a ballerina. I just do it for some sport and some fun. And I'd never go into kind of a professional space and be like, oh, by the way, I go to ballet, unless it got into that conversation. But I think it's figuring out what you are comfortable telling people, and specifically professional people and that professional side of you, what you're happy to tell them versus what you'd rather keep private. And yeah, I guess is finding the balance between being professional and who can you be more kind of geeky and nerdy with. But hopefully then find those people and you're okay with doing that. I think I've given some advice recently to people is it is important to say what you love and what you're excited about, because if you don't, people don't know. I recently worked on something and I could have kept very quiet about it, but I was telling my manager like, oh, I love this show, I am really invested in this, and that he then knew and was able to say, hey, we'd love for you to be part of it in this way. And I was like, oh my God, if I hadn't have said, you would never have asked me to do that. So I think it's, again, figuring out the balance between what you're happy for your professional life to know versus not, and then how you go about it in your professional life.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to try and work out that work-life balance, because it's always more of a personal preference or just tailored to each individual. I know, like, when I've worked with my clients or when they've first come to me, they've already kind of got like a job that they're working at beforehand, and then they would turn around and say, Daniel, I want to start a YouTube channel that eventually I want it to be my business. And even then we would have a conversation about, well, what do you want your channel to be about? And it's always about a passion that they're interested in. And then from that, usually, I still have to kind of make sure that they're aware that although this might be, a fun thing that they're doing on the side, we still have to treat it very much like you're starting a business. And you have to still have that kind of entrepreneurial mindset, even on something that you might be having as a passion. And I know with like a lot of my self-development clients, in particularly, I can think of many dating coaches that I've worked with in regards to where, some of them have 9-to-5 jobs, and then they've turned around and they said, oh, you know what, Daniel, I really love helping people. I want this to be my main career. And then we'll go out, we'll get footage, and I'll still be very blunt with them and say like that wasn't good enough. You need to do better. Here's the advice. Here's the feedback. Now we're going to film it again and we're going to do it. And certainly in those moments, they're not happy, but that content gets results when they make that really good content, and then they do find that passion in what it is that they're doing. But it's also very normal that everyone kind of experiences burnout at some point or another, even on things that they're passionate about. And the only advice I can kind of give on that, which actually I think was mentioned, was that you have to kind of have breaks here and there, that sometimes going all in on your passion, as much as, it can be a good acceleration to getting where you want to be, it can also force you to kind of have what I would call like the elastic band effect, and you can kind of spring back and go, you know what, this was too much. But yeah, and also a lot of them have been working still part-time or full-time whilst they're doing these passions, so even then they tend to get that little bit more exhausted by having to kind of start doing even more work in the time that they're doing, but making sure at least they have got that money in so they can slowly transition into their passion. So hopefully that kind of answers it. But yeah, I mean, it's really got to be more about like what would that balance look like for you, and how much time would you be able to dedicate to working on that YouTube channel or whatever platform or content that you want to be creating, and at what point would you then consider going all in on that and walking away from the stable job or income that you've got, knowing that, okay, now you're going to be a bit more in the deep end, but you've got more time to try and get clients or try and generate sales in some form or another. And I know again, just because of the kind of clientele that I have, which are all coaches, you know, for them, the conversation we have is like, well, how many clients do you need really to be successful, till it kind of overcompensates or compensates at the very least what it was that you were making when you were working in your full-time or part-time job. And okay, coaches, they charge a couple of grand for their services. So, you know, they then realize that, okay, well, if I go all in on the marketing that I'm working on, which is essentially what platforms like YouTube or any other social media are, but certainly for me, it's YouTube, that when they're making these videos and they're expressing themselves on camera, they're putting their personality out there, and people are resonating with that, and then they realize, you know, for whatever reason or whatever the niche is, that like, you know what, I want to go to that person because they're going to help me with these issues and topics or problems that I've got, then, you know, it just starts creating this online sales funnel of people just constantly coming in. And even just with the content that goes out, everything is what's called evergreen. It's evergreen content. So as long as it's always relevant, people will still find these videos. And I know with clients that I've got who are hypnotherapists or psychologists, where they've done videos on like how to get over your fear of spiders or heights or something, they're getting clients still from videos from like 6, 7, 8 years ago, rather than just the ones that are coming out. So, you know, you're always kind of adding to this database of content that is going out on your channel or whatever your social media platform or chosen platform is. But it's a time thing as well. And also just making sure that you aren't burning yourself out in a way that the content doesn't reach its potential. So as long as you're having regular breaks and stuff, and as long as you're working out that balance of like, okay, I need to make sure that I've still got money coming in, but I want to work on this business and I want to make it grow, whatever that may be, whatever it looks like, then yeah, you just have to work towards it. But there's no right or wrong with it, personally. So yeah, it's got to be your own balance with that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the great kind of tension at the heart of any creative job, is that most of us do it because it's fun, but if it's our job, you know, we have to get paid for it and we have to make a living and we have to figure out how we work that balance. You know, I mean, for me, you know, I'm in the kind of very privileged position of, you know, my day job is something that's very related to my hobby. You know, my profession is I'm an editor, and in that capacity, you know, I have to be a professional. I have to, you know, turn up on time and do the work and do it to a high enough standard to justify the money I'm being paid. And I have, you know, also the kind of protections and you know, guidelines that associated with that. You know, I can stop after a certain number of hours. You know, I have a contract that says what I will and won't do on a project and what I'm responsible for and what I'm not. My hobby is directing, and it is currently a hobby. You know, I've never made money from it. It's something, you know, I'd like a sideline. What I try to look at the balance in terms of, you know, how that work-life thing works up and how to balance the two is that I'm always learning. The one is always relevant to the other. So when I'm editing, even if it's, you know, the most boring corporate video, the simplest thing, something I could do in my sleep, I'm still working the muscles that I need for the more creative stuff. You know, I'm still telling a story. I'm still figuring out the best way to tell this story. And that's something that I feel, you know, I can take out of my serious job and into my fun one. And hopefully that kind of works the other way as well. The fact that, you know, I've been so passionate about storytelling from a very young age, the fact that, you know, my main hobby has always been film. I've always watched a lot of films. I've always been very intently focused on, you know, how to tell stories in a visual filmic way. That's actually, you know, that makes me better as an editor. That's something I can bring to the table. Again, you know, the projects might not be that interesting. It might not be something I'm passionate about, but in a way, it's something that I've been practicing. The downside with all of this is something that a lot of people have mentioned, and it's the fact that, you know, it becomes hard if you have this sort of dialogue between your work and work and play, it becomes very easy to flip into a mindset where you're always working and you're constantly on, and your personal projects are no longer a source of pleasure. They're like something else you've got to finish. And certainly I've been in a position, relatively recently where I'm doing, a 10-hour day editing someone else's film, and then I'm getting home and I'm like, right, God, I've got to put in a couple of hours editing my own film, and I really don't want to do it. And, and that there's not an easy answer, an easy solution to that. It is boring stuff like just managing your time, taking breaks, being a bit nice to yourself, figuring out a way around it. But I do think it really helps to conceptualize it as everything. If you're lucky enough to have a career in the industry that you want to be in, even if it's not the exact thing, to conceptualize it as exercise, as practice, as working those same muscles and flexing those same instincts.
Darrell from H&N, you said you had a question. There you go. There you go, my mic.
You mentioned earlier about moving forward, that there would be the best idea would be collaboration between new and old school entertainment. I've been thinking about that as you've gone on thing, and I think, for me at least, it seems to be a bit of a worrying trend towards a consolidation of old school entertainment. With very few examples of innovators. We have, like, if you think about it, even though to us it's old, Netflix is an innovator, and just the way that everyone turned on them the minute that they've basically reached their peak of users and it starts going down, makes me wonder how long is it before you take TikTok and all the other social medias come under one of those big media heads who don't know, are basically buying it just in the same way that I can remember that the first generation of TikTok stars all got signed up to do various shows, of which very few tended to work. It's just that they think, oh, they have customers, they have a fan base. If we bring them to the way we do things, somehow those things will do them instead of meeting them halfway. And I really wonder what it will take to make those entertainment heads listen to these people.
Hello?
Did everyone get hold of that?
Yeah.
Anyone who wants to go? Go on, Rosie.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, actually. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah? What?
1 minute.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was a really good question. I think, in my opinion, we've all seen it. There are a lot of TikTok stars or reality TV stars that are famous or that, have got lots of brand deals and lots of money and sponsorships, simply from, just being in a TikTok or just being in a viral video or something that's happened, and like how I was saying earlier about how things can get really saturated in this day and age. I feel like it can be a bit of a downer to people who have been doing this kind of work for years and years and years, and then they've been putting out the music, they've been putting in the work, but somebody who's done just a 30-second video will go viral, and then they'll get the sponsorships and the brands and the money. And so I feel like it can get a bit unfortunate when people make silly people famous, but not to say, but who am I to say? Because somebody might think I'm silly for that. But I feel like TikTok will have its day. I feel like, one day it will end. And same things with streaming services. Who knows what's to come. But I feel like TikTok will probably just die out.
TikTok's
and
starting
hopefully
its own
people
record label. TikTok's doing its own label and stuff. I heard.
Really? Since when?
Big things are happening, apparently.
Yeah, see, TikTok's even got its own record label now, which is a bit crazy. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like TikTok will die out. Everything has its day at the end of the day. We've just not got to let silly people become famous. That's it.
Okay, well, I think I'm getting the word to wrap up. I just want to thank you for the audience for coming to our panel. I want to thank everybody on the panel today: Daniel Colbert, Harry Baker, Rosie Webb, Jerry Scabera. Did I pronounce that right? Sorry. Anna Myers, Anna Nokomus. My name is Domingos Coxey. Thank you, Comicon 2022. Hope everyone has a good time, and we'll see you next year. Heck, maybe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.